Hello to all. This is the tarot reading for our world for the month of July 2024. And I hope you're doing well in the summer sun and that life is good in your corner of the world. So, regarding what to ask this month, people often write to me and ask about the money situation here in the US and about NESARA and GESARA. And I have to say, I've never seen anything that suggests that NESARA or GESARA is real. But the recent post by Cliff High sparked another round of questions, so I thought I would ask the cards for some insight. There's been a lot of uproar and comment since the Trump and Biden debate. Oh my. So that became the basis of my second question. And the last question had to do with what I hope will be some advice to people in America and the West regarding the best attitude with which to approach life over the coming month. So here are the official questions. Number 1, with all the talk about CBDCs, currency resets, NESARA, GESARA, and financial collapse, what would be the impact on us, the people, if there were a currency reset or financial collapse? Question number 2. What do the cards have to say about the Democratic candidate for president, which is Joe Biden at the moment, but may change? And what about Donald Trump? And then number 3, what animal totem would be the best indicator of how we should handle ourselves and events over the month of July? And the cards drawn were, for the first question, the Chariot, number 7 in the major arcana. For the second question, I drew 2 cards, one for Joe Biden, which was the King of Wands, and one for Trump, which is the Knight of Swords. And then for the third question, I went to the animal medicine cards and I drew the Alligator, number 50 in the animal medicine deck. So let's look at these. Question number 1 was, with all the talk about CBDCs, currency resets, NESARA, GESARA, and financial collapse, what would be the impact on us, the people, if there were a currency reset or a financial collapse? And the card drawn in answer to this question was from the major arcana. That means it's a major issue. And it was number 7, the Chariot, whose basic message is, get this, quote, dare to steer your own course. Dare to steer your own course. The Chariot is a powerful card carrying many messages that have to do with being forced to make decisions on your own, being pulled in opposite directions, needing to balance all sorts of changes that have come upon you, stuff that you maybe didn't create, and being pushed beyond your fears into a new path of action. So when you look at the card, you see a figure with golden hair riding in a cube-shaped chariot made of stone. He has a star-embossed crown on his head, and there's a canopy of stars over his head at the top of that chariot. On his armored breastplate, we see a geometric square. There is a sickle moon on each shoulder, and he wears a Roman skirt and a yellow belt around his waist, with both of them having a whole bunch of geometric symbols on them. Directly in front of the chariot are two sphinxes, one black, one white, that appear to be guides for the chariot, but they're not harnessed to that chariot in any way. Behind him are the structures of a city, and outside the walls of the city, you'll see trees, green grasses, and a river. The figure in the chariot holds a magic wand in his right hand, and the wheels of the chariot are big and bright yellow, as is the entire sky, bright yellow. So, as I said, this is a complex and powerful card that holds many messages. And the most powerful of those messages is that if there is a currency reset, debt relief, or financial collapse, we are going to be pulled in many directions. Many. And each of us will be on our own to steer whatever course of action is prudent. Another message from this card tells us to, quote, get clear about what you want and live your life accordingly, keeping in mind the old saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained. The figure in the chariot has golden hair, symbolizing the need for thoughts based on an awakened consciousness. The 8-pointed star in his crown and the canopy of stars above symbolize the possibility of acting in accordance with a higher dimension of existence in order to earn entry into that dimension. Are you awake? Or at least beginning to awaken? Or have you laughed and poo-pooed family and friends who tried to tell you what you did not want to hear? The stars in the crown and the canopy also carry a message of freedom and independence, accompanied by beauty and a new kind of order in the world. A message requiring maturity if we really want to enjoy that liberty and maintain it. The sickle moons on each shoulder act as like advisors, warning of the need to let more light into a situation. They represent the need to be conscious of lots of polarity. Maybe that should be plural, polarities, as well as what's happening all around us and what has happened in history. The light and consciousness is needed so that we don't repeat the same mistakes of the past, having to do with failing to pay attention and make our wishes known. So the sickle moons tell us not to let others decide our path and our fate. The armored breastplate that he wears symbolizes the wisdom of having a tough outer shell, but remaining soft and flexible inside. The square, there's a square embossed on that breastplate, represents the need for honesty, security, and stability. And it asks, in what ways have you been like the grasshopper in the story of the grasshopper and the ant? Singing, dancing, and playing all summer while failing to keep an eye on the coming winter and the need to get ready for times when food is in short supply? Like I said, a very interesting card. The skirt and the belt with many geometric shapes on it backs up this need to prepare for winter while adding the advice that we will have to build a new basis for financial dealings. And it should be something that aids our evolution and development. If the financial system collapsed or changed suddenly and drastically, would we be able to reorganize life in ways that would nurture further development as human beings? Or would we go down in flames and chaos? If all debt suddenly disappeared, would we go crazy and behave like the grasshopper? The stone chariot in the shape of a cube actually represents life as a human who is making decisions that affect his own life and set things in motion. When you hear that term, the stone, know that it refers to physical life as a human being. It's kind of like saying that we are no better than a box of rocks until we awaken to the power of consciousness within and the power of choice and decision. The stone chariot has yellow wheels, big yellow wheels on it that tell us we are the ones setting things in motion and rolling forward in accordance with the actions driven by consciousness. Once in motion, we cannot avoid the results of our choices, short-term or long-term results, also known as karma. Let me say that again. Once things are in motion, we cannot avoid the results of our choices, both short-term and long-term. And that is known as karma. The bottom line here is that you simply must know what you want and work consciously toward that goal, or you're going to end up trapped in a life that has no value, nor will it move you forward to your full potential. The black and white sphinxes in front of the chariot represent the choices and decisions that are right in front of us. The Sphinx has long been the symbol of merciless treachery. Watch out there. It warns that life can be treacherous and full of riddles. If you fail to solve the riddle you are encountering, which in this case is our financial situation, you will be killed and eaten. That's the message of the Sphinx. Thus, the warning to let yourself be guided from within, stay clear, stay flexible, and do not get lost in fuzzy, cloudy, unrealistic, or uncertain goals. Since we are asking about the impact of a big financial change or collapse, the message says here, in plain black and white, that this event would be one of those riddles we would have to solve, and failing to do so would prove fatal. We would have to navigate this collapse using our inner guidance and whatever common sense we could muster. Would you be okay? Do you have a set of ethics that you live by? Could you make wise choices that nurture life? What about the people around you? Are they the kind of people that can work together? Or would they panic and do stupid things? Notice the large breasts on the sphinxes. Breasts are the symbol of nurturance and sustenance. How would you take care of yourself and family if the money system went down? What is your backup plan? What would you do to sustain yourself that would result in balance and being proud of what you did? The figure in the chariot holds a magic wand in his right hand. Would you be willing and able to use the magic wand in your hands, which is your consciousness and your set of values and ethics? Or would you descend into fear and behaviors that hurt others? In the background behind the chariot, you see Father City and Mother Nature, but they are not together. Mother Nature is outside the city walls. This represents the challenge that would arise if the current financial system fell or made a major change and people were not prepared. Those in the cities would suffer because Mother Nature is the ultimate source of security and the source of all food and other necessities. Can the cities remain peaceful if there's no connection with Mother Nature and consciousness gets caught in fear? Would those who are living in locations where Mother Nature is an integral part of daily life be willing or able to help those in the city? How would that be organized and carried out? What if it was too dangerous to go into the city to offer help? The winged sun on the front of the chariot suggests that awakened hearts and minds will be needed if there's a big financial change. The winged sun represents either victory or defeat, with no gray zone for us to linger in or to sit there and put off making decisions. It warns that we must choose light or dark, and that we could overcome any difficulties by getting free of old ideas. The wings symbolize the wings of consciousness meant to carry us up and out of the past, and the sun represents the light of a new path, a new day, and a new way of doing things. This is backed up by that Indian symbol of lingam and yoni right underneath that winged sun, which represent the coming together of male and female, as well as the integration of old and new ways that maintain balance throughout the transition. Best of the old, best of the new. Pick those out and take those forward with you. The Chariot is the number 7 card in the major arcana, and the 7 represents having arrived at a boundary that limits the way we live. Can't live that way anymore. The message is stop, look, and listen within. Reflect on what is changing and assess the old ways you were comfortable in, as well as the new ways coming at you, because you are about to cross a threshold. Any change in our financial system would certainly impact our entire lives, and the 7 tells us to think carefully, because what we choose will have results that affect our lives forever going forward. Question number 2. What do the cards have to say about the Democratic candidate for president, which is Joe Biden at the moment, but may change? And what about Donald Trump? Now, I have shared several times in several places that I don't see an election happening. But after that awful debate, I had to ask about the 2 candidates in case I'm all wrong about the election and we actually have one. So the card drawn for Joe Biden was the King of Wands. And I have to say, I laughed out loud when I drew it. The basic message of the King of Wands is, quote, actions speak louder than words, so don't pay too much attention to what I say. Instead, watch what I do. And like I said, I laughed out loud. You know, the card drawn for Donald Trump was the Knight of Swords, which we'll get to in a moment. If you look at the King of Wands, you see a man seated on a throne that reaches all the way to the top of the card. He has red hair and wears a crown that's designed as a crown of flames. He also wears a red robe with a green shoulder capelet and green shoes. On the back of the throne, there are salamanders and lions. And he also wears a long yellow mantle cloak with salamanders on it. He holds a single wand in his right hand, and his left hand is in a fist. The throne sits on what looks like a gray cement platform, and another salamander is standing on that platform. The sky is blue, and there are no signs of nature or life in the background. So, of all the cards I could have pulled, this one perfectly represents the situation regarding Joe Biden because of the two contrasting views held by the American people. Those on the left will see the positive side of this card, while those on the right will see the negative side. So the king sits in a position that looks and sounds powerful, but the way he sits is turned away from the people, and he stares off into the distance. This body language represents not being truly engaged or caring about those he leads. And unfortunately, I'm reminded of the many times we have watched Joe Biden staring off into space or turning away from the camera at inappropriate moments. His left fist backs up this unwillingness to engage and hints that he is fighting the very people he is meant to lead. The green capelet around his shoulders and shoes symbolize both growth and its many lessons, as well as immaturity and failure to use wisdom in making decisions. That red hair is the symbol of hot, passionate, impetuous thoughts and decisions, as well as lust, envy, even mania. And the crown of flames underlines this very strongly, as does the red robe. Since our question is about Biden as a candidate for president, the red hair and the crown of flames constitutes something that symbolizes zeal and great strength of will, but also carries a warning that the king is someone to beware of. Do we want someone hot-tempered or with a tendency toward lust or mania? And if that zeal and strength of will is not applied with love, then what? The throne that reaches to the top of the card symbolizes someone with unlimited power. Where's the balance in that? Someone who could bring heaven and earth together if he wanted. Has Biden demonstrated any ability to bring heaven and earth together? The lions on the back of the throne are the symbol of great strength, vitality, and will. However, they are shown in black, indicating that there is a danger of great suppression. The warning is, watch out. Once burned, twice shy. We have already experienced Joe Biden as president and must ask ourselves, do we want more of what we have experienced under his leadership? Is life getting better? And are we moving forward as a country or with our personal development? The salamanders on the back of the throne and the long yellow cloak offer further insight into what a second Biden presidency might offer. Salamanders are a wonderful symbol of the ability to walk through the fire unharmed. But here, the salamanders are curled into circles. And this is a warning against repetition and going in circles. How many times do we want to walk through the fire? And how many times can we come out unscathed? The single salamander standing on the platform has further significance in that it represents a test, requiring us to decide what we want, which backs up the message from that first card, the Chariot. The gray cement platform symbolizes lack of care and detachment, and the absence of any signs of nature or life point to the possibility of life becoming artificial or even dying out. And the warning is, do not become alienated from nature. So moving on to Donald Trump, the card pulled here was the Knight of Swords, whose basic message is quicker than the shadow, which makes me wonder if this is a veiled reference to the shadow state or the shadow government. This card is a card of insight, and the rider on the card is charging forward with the goal of revealing the answer to this question. Quote, what is behind it all? Think about that. In looking at the card, you see a man on a gray horse racing toward the left, sword raised high and red feathers and cloak flying. The wind is blowing in his face, making the trees bend in the distance, while also pushing jagged clouds in a blue sky where you can barely see 5 birds flying. The figure wears full body armor, and the bridle on his horse is decorated with butterflies and red birds. The landscape in the background is yellow and red and mostly bare of vegetation, again warning against becoming alienated from nature. This card shows a knight that has turned his horse into the wind, which is a symbol of courage and determination. And it represents defying old powers and old systems by using the intellect and mental agility. The wind is the universal symbol of the mental realm, and the sword is the symbol of the intellect and the ability to use one's intellect in such a masterful way that it overcomes all enemies. The knight on the horse is riding toward the left, which symbolizes the opening of the subconscious mind. Now, since the subconscious is really just that area of consciousness that we hardly ever pay any attention to, the rider is forcing people to pay attention to things they have not bothered to look at or think about in the past. If there is anything Donald Trump has done, it is to get people to pay attention to what is going on in our country. The rider here is wearing full body armor, which indicates he is serious, fully engaged in the fight, and ready to fight to the death. As mentioned above with a chariot, armor calls for a tough outer approach while not becoming hardened inside. Armor also indicates radical energies. Now, this can point to the fact that Trump may generate loyalties that are not willing to settle or compromise, and thus could be considered radical. It can also mean that the changes he is fighting for would seem radical when compared to the ways things were done previously. That gray horse symbolizes that things are moving forward energetically, and there is a need for careful neutrality and thoughtful detachment. This is a little like saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because sometimes change is eagerly sought by one side, and the other side is highly resistant. So the warning to both of these sides is to avoid getting so caught up in fighting that they forget what they're fighting for or what they're trying to make happen. What are we fighting for in these United States? What have we lived and loved about life here? And what do we want to keep? What could we add to make it better? The butterflies on the bridle of the horse symbolize transformation, but also represent the soul of life and the heart of the psyche. We are all about life, which continues to evolve. The red birds represent passionate thoughts and high goals. So the questions we have to ask ourselves are, does Donald Trump offer transformation to something better? Are his goals for our country and our goals for our country in alignment and worth fighting for? The two long red feathers that stream out behind the knight's helmet symbolize strength, passion, and great love, while that raised sword carries an admonishment that says, we don't have the full picture yet. And that seems to be a theme that runs through this entire month. We're not quite to the full picture. So I'll close my comments on this look at Biden and Trump by saying that one of the most interesting aspects of the Knight of Swords is that the situation that's calling forth the action of the knight may have set loose the sorcerer's apprentice. This would indicate that the changes in motion might snowball into massive, uncontrolled change that cannot be stopped among people who don't know or understand the whole story of what is happening or the outcome they want, and they end up stepping in and making a mess of things. This often results in a lot of destruction. So here, the five birds and the raggedy clouds in the windy sky come under consideration because they warn of stormy times, lack of coherence, and a need to recognize how multifaceted our reality is. They symbolize the need to get to the quintessence of who we are and what we stand for. It means get to the core of who we are and what we stand for. If the Biden-Trump situation sets loose the sorcerer's apprentice, the situation may result in being unable to maintain unity. Whatever remains of government would then have to allow those many facets of life in America to shape and reshape themselves while working to keep them all in communication with one another and trying to help each facet succeed, not only for their own sake, but for the sake of creating successful relationships among them that make life secure. So this brings us to our last question. What animal totem would be the best indicator of how we should handle ourselves and events over the month of July? And the card drawn here was the alligator, number 50 in the animal medicine deck. The alligator represents primal energies of birth, motherhood, and initiation, and the integration of these energies into daily life. Let me read that again. The alligator represents primal energies of birth, motherhood, and initiation, and the integration of these energies into daily life. Alligator advises us to roll with the punches when being attacked by life circumstances. That's quite a message for us at this time because so many are feeling stressed by what they perceive as attacks on their way of life. So although you wouldn't usually think of the alligator as motherly, when its eggs hatch, The alligator will help the baby out of its shell and then carry it very gently in its mouth down to the water. It will also dig what are called gator holes in mud that then fill with the last remaining water in an area, and these tiny ponds help other water creatures to survive when it gets dry. In contrast with the motherly aspect, alligators have long been associated with ferocious fury, surprising speed, and intense persistence. When alligators manage to nab their prey, they drag it underwater and store it somewhere, like maybe against some rocks or under a log, that it won't be carried away by the current. And then they leave it there for a while until it's easily digestible. And that offers us lessons in patience and timing. It tells us to stay submerged with only our eyes above the water so we can watch carefully, collecting and digesting all the information needed to make a move. Gator medicine warns against passing judgment because all the facts are not yet on the table. Where have we heard that before? This whole reading is saying, okay, you don't have all the information. And jumping to conclusions will only make us feel like fools later. And premature decisions may cause great harm. This is a card of needing to look very carefully at the present situation and study it until it is fully understood. It warns against getting caught in the game of human judgment, which often results in rushing to be the first to report something that turns out to be inaccurate or nothing more than propaganda or an exaggeration or an out-and-out lie. So this card tells us, step back, look seriously at what is happening, and then laugh at the world, because to get angry is just a sign that you are self-important and inflexible. Ouch. This is the card of dealing with the dragon of life. An alligator represents unexpected outcomes and ultimate rewards. Oddly, this card also symbolizes dealing with someone or some situation in which those directing the situation, kind of behind the scenes, are rigid, and we end up watching them go down in quicksand. The warning is, let them go down, and do not rush in to save them or to make yourself look good, because you'll be caught in the quicksand and you'll go down with them. When the alligator card comes up, it announces that a rite of passage is in progress. And we should recognize this and handle it with as much wisdom as we can muster, integrating the growth that we experience. Gator energy demands that we realize that something has escaped our perception and has not been factored into our assessment of what is going on. The task associated with this is to integrate all probabilities, not just all facts, all probabilities before taking any steps. And then watch out for the quicksand. Tactically speaking, its advice is roll over and come out on top. So that's it for this month's tarot. Thank you for listening, and let's have a really good month. Take care.